Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Gurudev, and all glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. So thank you all for being here today. Today is Thursday, and we're here to continue our discussion from the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. So, thank you for being here. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtapraya Shabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavata Uttama Shloke Bhagavati Naishtike. So today we're reading from SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, Canto 1, Chapter 19, Central Appearance of Shri SAHADEV. And we discussed text number 33. Hare Krishna. So I will read the Sanskrit, the synonyms, the translation, and then the purport. And we'll try to discuss as much as we can. Yesham samsmaranat pumsham sadya sudyante vaikriha timpunardashana sparsha padashuchasana dibihi. Yesham samsmaranat pumsham sadya sudyanti vaikriha timpunardarshana sparsha padashuchasana dibihi. Yesham samsmaranat pumsam sadya sudayanti vaikriha timpunardarshana sparsha padashuchasana dibihi. Synonyms. Yesham, of whom, samsmaranat, by remembrance, pumsam, of a person, sadhya, instantly, shudyanti, cleanses, vai, certainly, griha, all houses, kim, what, puna, then, darshana, meeting, sparsha, touching, pada, the feet, shocha, washing, asana adibihi, by offering a seat, etc. Translation. Translation and purport by Jagat Krishna Prabhu. Simply by our remembering you, our houses become instantly sanctified. And what to speak of seeing you, touching you, washing your holy feet, and offering you a seat in our home. I take the translation again. Simply by our remembering you, our houses become instantly sanctified. And what to speak of seeing you, touching you, washing your holy feet, and offering you a seat in our home. Purport. The importance of holy places of pilgrimage is due to the presence of great sages and saints. It is said that sinful persons go to the holy places and leave their sins there to accumulate. But the presence of the great saints disinfects the accumulated sins, and thus the holy places continue to remain sanctified by the grace of the devotees and saints present there. If such saints appear in the homes of worldly people, suddenly the accumulated sins of such worldly enjoyers become neutralized. Therefore, the holy saints actually have no self-interest with the householders. The only aim of such saints is to sanctify the houses of the householders. And the householders, therefore, should feel grateful when such saints and sages appear at their doors. A householder who dishonors such holy orders is a great offender. It is enjoined, therefore, that a householder who does not bow down before a saint at once must undergo fasting for the day in order to neutralize the great offense. Om Ajana Timranda Sia Jana Jana Shalakaya Chakshu Amil Tamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Mano Bishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakatamayam Dadati Swapadantika. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalan Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupram Shri Pratam Saragunantam Vientam Sajivam Sadvitam Sabadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vintam Shri Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swamini Namini Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Ashtatatmane Shri Guru Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namini Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Guravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shinyavadi Pastutari Shatarini Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pratayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Goratveje Namaha Nama Brahmanya Devyago Brahmanahitya Cha Jagaditya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So we thank you all for being here. I'll put the verse on the screen once again so we read the translation. Simply by our remembering you, our houses become instantly sanctified. And what to speak of seeing you, touching you, washing your holy feet, and offering you a seat in our home. Hare Krishna. So this a continuation of Maharaj Parikshit preparing for the ultimate, that is death. We welcome you again. Well, it is said that there are two things that are for sure, they are unfailing. One is tax. Taxes do not care whether you are sick. Taxes do not care whatever your situations may be. You're going to be taxed anyway. For example, there is what we call purchase tax. Whenever we buy anything, if you buy something that costs you $5, like the state I live in, there is a 6% tax charged on that $5. So if I buy something $5, there is 6% tax. So it's going to cost me at least $5.06. The house, so the storekeeper does not care whether I have 6 cents to add to the $5 or not. It is a must that I pay. It is a must that you pay for whatever tax you need to pay on your property. So there is property tax. And the second thing that is for sure is death. Whether we like it or not, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. And sometimes we forget that we're going to die at some point. And as soon as we forget that we're going to die, we become stupid people. Why do we become stupid when we forget that we're going to die? We become stupid when we forget we're going to die because that will reflect in our behavior. Just imagine somebody travel to another country for a vacation, and you have a visa that is going to expire for whatever months or weeks that was given to you by the embassy. And you go to this new country for vacation, and you start fighting for accumulation of things when you know that on your way back to your home country, there are very few things you can go back with. Many things you can accumulate in that foreign country, you cannot take them with you. And so when we understand that we are immigrants in this material world, and whether we like it or not, at some point we're going to be kicked out of this place. And when we remember that, and we start working towards going back to where we originally belonged to, then we start behaving and acting as sane people. The problem oftentimes is that most of us do not even know how to remember things. Because one, we know how to think if we're lucky. Most of us do not even know how to think. Because as living human beings, we need to think and we need to remember. And oftentimes, those who are fortunate to be able to think and to remember, oftentimes use their brain. They use the mind. We use the mind to think. And we use the brain or the mind to remember stuff. And so there are some people who cannot remember. And it's a disease with the brain. But that is a very, very shallow way of looking at things, because once we start thinking and remembering things by using the mind, we're going to fall short in our pursuit of that thought or that remembrance. And so in Vedic civilization, human beings are trained and encouraged to use the heart to remember things. And so when Maharaj Parikshit referred to Shukadev Goswami, that by remembering you, we become cleansed, we become disinfected. It's very interesting how Srila Prabhupada uses words, because when there is infection, it means that there is a foreign microbe or foreign organism that is causing disease in that particular environment. And in order to cleanse this particular foreign organism, we have to use disinfectant. This is the opposite of whatever the word is. And so infection is the word, and then to nullify that is disinfection. So simply by remembering Krishna and the pure devotees, we disinfect this negative understanding way of living lives. Because when we forget about Krishna, when we forget about the saintly beings, the devotees of the Lord, then we remain where we are because we do not remember that we do not belong to this world. But as we can see, those of us who are fortunate enough to have come in contact with any form of religion in this world, all religions teach that we do not belong to this world. Regardless of what religion one may prefer or adhere to, any religion, if that religion is bona fide, teaches that we do not belong to this world. And we see that everybody is dying, no matter who you are. When we're sick, we go to the hospital and the doctor treats us, the very doctor who treats us, is also going to die. They're dying. Everybody is dying. But nature is so wonderful and is so crafty that nature designs so much temporary pleasures to attract us. And in this way, we sometimes forget our real nature. That our real nature is that we are servants of the Lord. And so in the text itself, it is said that simply, that is a very important word, simply by our remembering you. This is Maharaj Parikshit speaking to Shukadev Goswami, the sages that had assembled there, and all the devotees of the Lord, that simply by remembering you, our houses become instantly sanctified. Why? Because in our homes, without Krishna, is infected with so many negativities. So many negativities. And so when we simply remember Krishna or the pure devotees of the Lord, then our houses get sanctified. Why? Why do our houses get sanctified? Simply by remembering Krishna or the pure devotees or the saints, the saintly beings. Our houses get sanctified because God, Krishna, the absolute supreme being, is all pure. And because he is all pure, wherever that Supreme Lord appears, becomes purified. Srila Prabhupada oftentimes likens Krishna to the sun, that no matter how a contaminated place may be, once the sun appears and the sun throws its rays to that particular spot, that spot becomes sanctified. It becomes purified. And so Krishna is billion, trillion times much stronger, much more purifying agent than the sun. And therefore, wherever Krishna appears, he instantly purifies the place. So how is it that the Lord may not be in a particular house, but simply by remembering him, the house gets sanctified? And that is also possible because of the nature of the Supreme Lord. The nature of the Supreme Lord is that of omnipotent. His potency is absolute. In other words, when we think of him, when we see him, when we touch him, there is no much difference. But because we are mortal beings, what Maharaj Parikshit is saying here is very, very important. And I'll try to explain why it's very, very important. Because he is saying that just by remembering Krishna, just by remembering you, Shukadev Goswami, our houses get sanctified. And then he moves on to say, and what to speak of seeing you. So that means that remembering Krishna, remembering the pure devotees of the Lord is purifying. But even higher than a remembering is seeing or touching or washing the holy feet of these great saintly beings. That means that we should not simply become impersonalists, whereby we only think, wish, will, and that is the end of it. We should also move on from those phases to the action level. In other words, when we have the opportunity to hear the great saints, we should hear them. In fact, not should, we must. If we want to attain salvation, we must. Oftentimes, we have some devotees we call Sahadevs. Sahadevs are pretenders. They pretend to be such very, very advanced devotees that by word of mouth, by lip service, they will do so much service. But when it comes to reality to perform the service, they won't. Yes, I'm thinking of Krishna. I'm remembering Krishna. But Maharaj Parikshit is reminding and encouraging us that higher or even better than just remembering Krishna is by seeing, by touching, feeling, and engaging in some sort of service to these great devotees of the Lord. And that is why he's referring to washing the lotus feet of these great saints. In fact, Sri Krishna himself instructs us in Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, where Krishna says, Tad vidi pranipatena. If one wants to know the truth, one has to approach a bona fide spiritual master. Approaching a bona fide spiritual master indicates that we should approach a person. If Krishna was just interested in remembering and not doing anything else, he would have said, just remember. But he said, approach a bona fide spiritual master. And not only that, he says, and render service unto him. So you approach a person and then you render service to the person. When you render service to the person, that is where and when the enlightenment begins. Enlightenment begins when we approach a bona fide spiritual master. And then when we approach the spiritual master, we start rendering service to the bona fide spiritual master. Then realizations of the absolute begins. And so it is said in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that it is the duty of every man in every country, in every circumstance, and at all times to approach a bona fide spiritual master. And then you do what? You question him about devotional service and you listen to him explain the process. So devotional service is a process. This is in a reference to Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 25, text number 122. This is what Lord Chaitanya himself is saying, that if one wants to attain self-realization, to understand who he is, who she is, why he is here, why we are put in this material body, in this material world, one has to approach a bona fide spiritual master. So when we approach bona fide spiritual master, and then we throw at him our questions. Why am I suffering? I do not want to suffer. Why am I suffering? And then the spiritual master will be in the position to explain to us why we are suffering. Why is it that I do not want to grow old, but I'm growing old? I do not want to get sick. I'm getting sick. I do not want to die. I'm not dead yet, but I'm going to die. It could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be a day after tomorrow, it could be next year, but eventually we're all going to die. Why? Then the spiritual master will explain why these things are happening and the scientific process to overcoming these problems. The spiritual master will explain all this, but it is our responsibility as individuals to make such an approach. Now, one may be intelligent to understand that he has to approach a bona fide spiritual master. But how do you understand or differentiate a bona fide spiritual master from a bogus spiritual master? That is also explained in the scriptures. Now, in the purport of this particular text we're trying to discuss, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that the pure devotees, the saintly people, they do not need anything from the householders other than to bless them. And so in the purport, Srila Prabhupada was saying that it is to the benefit of householders to receive saintly beings in their homes. Because simply by receiving saintly people in our homes get sanctified. It gets disinfected. And it becomes a very big offense when a householder does not appropriately and efficiently receive saintly people when saintly people visited their homes. Because it is said that the saintly people do not spend any much more time in any householder's house more than the time one takes to milk a cow. And why that analogy is given? That analogy is given because it is said, Srila Prabhupada has explained this in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the importance and the relevance of cow milk. That all the saintly people need is just a pint of cow milk. A well-bred, cultured, trained cow. If you get the milk, a pint of milk, you drink that. It has all the necessary vitamins and minerals to keep this body healthy. And so the saintly people, they go to different householders' homes because in the ancient days, almost every householder will have, Srila Prabhupada explains, will have at least 10 cows. And so these saintly people go there, and as soon as you go there, the cow head person or the householder milks the cow right there and then gives it to you. That is how much time the saintly person spends in the householder's house. But simply by spending that few minutes in that saintly that greyhounder's or householder's house, that householder's house becomes disinfected of all negativities or ignorance. Therefore, we should pray that we would have such opportunity to have saintly people visit our houses. Now, for us as devotees, we are very fortunate because the Supreme Lord is ever present in our homes in the form of his Acha Vigraha, in his form as a deity. Now, there are many ignorant people who do not understand the difference between deities and idols or statues. You know, sometimes even in the scriptures, the deities are referred to as statues or idols. That is just lack of understanding of the real nature of the deities or Krishna manifesting in the form of matter. It could be jewelry, it could be wood, it could be stone, it could be marble, it could be paper, it could be drawing, it could be anything. It's matter. But that matter is not material. It's anti-material. It is spiritual because God is absolute. And that is why we said initially in our discourse that just by remembering Krishna, we become sanctified because he's omnipotent and he's omniscient. He's all pervasive. He's everywhere. The sun is located at one particular spot, but it's all pervasive. So we can say the sun is omniscient. Even though sometimes the sun appears to be covered by the clouds, but it's simply the sun allowing the cloud to appear to be covering it. When the sun is really ready to dissipate the cloud, it does so in an instant. And so Krishna cannot be covered by anything. Krishna is the absolute truth. He is superior to all, and no one is equal to him. So when we remember Krishna, we become disinfected because of his omniscience. So how is it that when we think or remember the devotees or the saints, we become sanctified? Because the saints have been able to capture Krishna in their hearts. Krishna is in the heart of all living beings, but there is a different aspect of Krishna appearing in the heart of his pure devotees. When we say Krishna is in the heart of everyone, Krishna is in the heart of everyone in his form as Paramatma, in his 400 form. When someone is a pure devotee of the Lord, that Paramatma is no more there in the heart. It is Krishna in his 200 form living in the heart of that devotee. So this is the difference of, we may say, different aspects of Krishna in the hearts of different living beings. For a conditioned soul like myself, the Lord is in my heart, but is in my heart as a witness in his 400 form. For pure devotees, like Srila Prabhupada, Lord Krishna is not in his heart as 400 form. He is in his heart in his 200 form. And so once we remember Srila Prabhupada, because Krishna is with him, we become sanctified. We become sanctified. This is the importance of remembering Krishna and his pure devotees. And there are so many examples in the scriptures how and when different devotees were having challenges, were in serious predicaments, and they remembered Krishna, they remembered the pure devotees of the Lord, and they were saved, they were rescued. Typical example, commonly, is Gajendra. Gajendra, the elephant, was being attacked by a crocodile. And the elephant is a land creature, even though it can get in the water, but it's a land creature. So when the elephant was in the water and the crocodile, being in its natural habitat, attacked this elephant, the elephant tried to fight to rescue himself. He couldn't. And then he remembered Krishna. Due to his past pious credit, he was able to remember Krishna. And what happened? Krishna intervened. Why was it that Hiranyakashipu could not kill his son? Because he always remembered Krishna. Why is it that Ajamil did not face the wrath of Yamaraj, but was rescued by the Vishnudutas? Because he remembered the name of Krishna. Even though in his heart, he was not thinking of Krishna. Remember I said, in the Vedic teachings, one is trained to think with the heart. And so when we think with our heart, when we remember with our heart, that is when there is great effect. Because when I think of, who am I seeing here? I'm seeing Mother Atma here. If I think of Mother Atma, and I'm just thinking of her in my mind, oh, when was the last time I spoke with Mother Atma? I'm just thinking, there is no feeling. But when I think with my heart, and I begin to think with my heart, how wonderful experience we had when we met together in Saki Prayer's house. And then the emotions start to flow, because emotions is found in the heart. It's not found in the mind. And so when we learn to think with our hearts, that is when and where the emotions flow. And when the emotions flow, that is where devotion also sets in. Like Kavikanapu Prabhu was speaking yesterday, and he said it beautifully, that where there is emotion, that is bound to find devotion also. Just as when there is passion, then compassion also comes in. When there is no passion, there cannot be compassion. When there is no emotion, there cannot be devotion. So we use our hearts. And so I was talking about, somebody has the mic open. Okay. We're talking about Ajamil. It is said in Canto 6 of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Krishna was, Sutta Goswami was describing how the Yamadutas couldn't kidnap Ajamil. When the Yamadutas went back to their Lord, Yamaraj, and complained to Yamaraj, this has never happened to us, ever. It's never happened to us that we went to embark on our duty and somebody stopped us. All along, we thought you are the Supreme Lord, but it probably isn't the case, because otherwise, how could somebody stop us? And so Yamaraj spoke to them and says, no, you're mistaken. I'm not the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is Lord Vishnu, is Krishna. The Supreme Lord is Krishna. And you are making a very grave mistake. You cannot bring anybody who has any sort of relationship with Krishna to me. The only beings you can bring to me are those who have nothing to do with Krishna. Those who have never bowed their head to Krishna. In fact, let me see if I can find it, because it's very beautiful how Yamaraj said it. No. Yes. Let me share it here. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 3, Text 29. Actually, it starts from 27, text 27 all the way to 29. It says, my dear servants, please bring to me only those sinful persons who do not use their tongues to chant the holy name and qualities of Krishna, whose hearts do not remember the lotus feet of Krishna even once, and whose heads do not bow down even once before Lord Krishna. Send me those who do not perform their duties toward Vishnu, which are the only duties in human life. Please bring me all such fools and rascals. And so here we can boldly say that all atheists are fools and rascals, according to Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. The Lord of Death, Yamaraj, is saying emphatically that all those who do not attempt to render some sort of service, or at least have some sort of recognition of the supremacy of a being, they are fools and they are rascals. And such beings are those that are supposed to be sent before Yamaraj for punishment. And it's very beautiful what Yamaraj said. Yamaraj said here, those bring persons who do not use their tongues to chant the holy name and qualities of Krishna, whose hearts do not remember. Like I said initially, generally, we are all trained to remember things with our minds. But that is a very wrong way of thinking or remembering. The proper way of remembering and thinking is to use our hearts. And so here Yamaraj is saying, those whose hearts do not remember the lotus feet of Krishna even once, and whose heads do not bow down even once before Lord Krishna. And that is why oftentimes when we go out on Harinam Sankirtan, especially, it's very interesting how Harichakra Prabhu does it. Whenever we go out on Harinam Sankirtan, Harichakra chants in a very peculiar way, which, of course, Bhaktivedanta Maharaj used to chant like that. He would chant, Hare, and then he will encourage the observers to repeat. And then they will also repeat, Hare, and then he will guard his ear, Krishna, and then they will repeat Krishna. So that is a very, very kind and merciful way of helping the people in general, because Yamaraj is saying that those who have not uttered the name of Krishna even once, those who have not even bowed their heads before Krishna even once, bring them to me. Therefore, there is the likelihood that when someone bows his head once before Krishna, he may not face the wrath of Yamaraj. Therefore, as devotees, the responsibility of a devotee, a Vaishnava devotee, is to relieve the pains and the agonies that the general people are going through. And therefore, it is our responsibility to help alleviate the pains these people are going through. And how do we do that? By encouraging them to chant. By encouraging them to chant. Even the pure devotees, the gopis, they become satisfied. They become pleased. They become fulfilled whenever they remember Krishna. And how do we remember Krishna? I was using a reference to Mother Atma. And I made that reference because I know Mother Atma. And I've had a relationship with her. We've had encounters where we played together, we sang together, we danced together. And so when I remember those experiences, then I can concentrate and think about them in my heart. And so in order for us to remember Krishna, we should first of all know some of the activities of Krishna. For example, we should know how Krishna looks like. For example, we are fortunate, we have images of Krishna. We can meditate on Krishna. How and why? Is it possible to meditate on Krishna? We can, because we know Krishna. So we can meditate on his lotus feet. We just celebrated Nityananda Trayodashi, and we have the beautiful lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. And in the soul of Lord Nityananda are so many wonderful symbols. We have the conch. So when we're meditating on Lord Nityananda, we are not meditating on something vague, something in vacuum. We have something in our minds, in our hearts, or we say like in our mind's eye, or in our heart's eye. We remember the conch in the soul of Lord Nityananda. We remember the umbrella. We remember the lotus flower. And so when we think of Krishna in our heart, it may begin in our mind. But once we know Krishna, we've seen Krishna in his image, we think of the feet. In fact, Srila Prabhupada has also taught us the proper way of receiving a guest. Receiving a guest means you start looking at the feet. So actually, I asked this question. Most of us are trained in this mundane world. When we want to see somebody, straight away we look at the face. We're looking at the face. But the scientific Vedic standard is that you start looking at the feet. And looking at the feet humbles you, humbles the person looking. And so we look at the feet, and slowly, gradually, we move from the feet, from the feet to the legs, to the knee, torso, chest, and then the face, the head, like that. And so we also know some of the pastimes that Krishna enacted. For example, we know how Krishna saved the inhabitants of Vrindavan by lifting the Govardhan hill. We were talking about this yesterday. So when we remember this, it brings so much nectarian joy in our hearts, not in our minds, in our hearts. And so in order for our hearts to start enjoying the remembrance of Krishna, begins by first of all purifying the heart. Because when the heart is not purified, then no matter what we put in, it becomes contaminated. And that is why when the heart is contaminated, Krishna does not come in. But in his form as Paramatma, he is everywhere. So he's here with us. But when we start purifying the heart, and how do we purify the heart? We purify the heart by chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Once we start chanting like this, we start purifying the heart. And the quickest way and the surest way of purifying the heart is Harinam Sankirtan. You're going out there and then you're singing, you're dancing, because Harinam is so purifying in the sense that the walls of the cosmos becomes an amplifying instrument. And so when we chant, it's like when you lock yourself in a small four-wall room and you start screaming. There is echo. It's called like a tintinnabulation. It echoes, and so it makes it louder. And so when we go out there and then we chant, it hits the four walls of the earth, and it bounces back, and it becomes much louder. And so all creatures benefit from hearing the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And because there are 2, 3, 4 devotees that have come together, it becomes even more amplified. And so we need japa on our beads, and then we need Harinam Sankirtan. And another form of Harinam Sankirtan is studying the scriptures, SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. And so we are fortunate. We chant on our japa. We go on Harinam Sankirtan. Those who are fortunate who go on Harinam Sankirtan. Those who are unable to go on Harinam Sankirtan, some may be fortunate to study the scriptures like we're doing today. Could be Bhagavatam, it could be Chaitanya Charitamrita, it could be Bhagavad Gita as it is. It could be Upadishamrita, it could be Nectar of Instructions. It could be any of our many transcendental literatures. We are automatically in touch with Krishna. We have the deities, we have the devotees. So what else? What else are we lacking? In fact, I will play one short clip. One Srila Prabhupada disciple shared this memories that Srila Prabhupada said that the spiritual master will come back as long as it has to take him to take the disciple back home, back to Godhead. And so the devotees asked, so is it one time or two times? Srila Prabhupada says, it could be many times. It could be one time, two times, three times. And so the devotees were excited. And then Srila Prabhupada said, but make it in this lifetime so that you do not make me come back. So Srila Prabhupada is not so eager to come back to this crazy world. If we have not realized or experienced or accepted that this world is a crazy world, then we will keep remaining here. When you go to an environment and you feel that this is a very bad environment, I do not want to be here, it's only then that you'll be able to leave. But if you enjoy the environment, you're not going to leave. And so as long as we enjoy this world, we think this is the best place, we continue living here. But only a fool will think that this is a very happy place, because nobody is ever happy in this world. We have some happiness, but it's very temporary. Very temporary. But we have the keys to open the door to the spiritual world and get out of this place and never come back here again. So let's seize this opportunity, because if we try to procrastinate, we probably procrastinated the same thing in our previous life, that, okay, I cannot make it this lifetime. I'll come next life. And here we are. This is the next life. It is said that today is the tomorrow we were talking about yesterday. So today is the lifetime we were talking about yesterday, that that lifetime we're going to make it. So please, devotees, let's make it. It's possible. Hare Krishna. So thank you all for your rapt attention and listening. If anyone has a question, comment, please, you may indicate that. Kavikanapu Prabhu, please unmute.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's great, SAHADEV Prabhu, for your wonderful
Hare
lecture.
Krishna, Kavi Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Thank
Prabhu.
you. You are merciful.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. So I have a question. My question is regarding when you were saying, you talk about you cannot think of, if you want to think of Krishna, I forgot how you put it, that we have to use our heart, not our mind. So I get confused. Is it possible to think with the heart? And what is the function of the mind? So I get caught up and confused in that what is the difference between the heart and the mind? Where is the mind situated? Is it in the head or in the heart? So please, Papa, can you throw more light? Then I have another question, second one. I don't know, maybe I should ask this or I should want to answer this first.
Maybe let me try to take this first. So I have a very porous brain.
Because this second one also is very connected.
Okay, so if I may put the verse back on the screen, maybe you were busy, but on the screen I'm going to put this verse. In our world, in our experience as human beings, we think with our minds, we remember with our minds, right? But this is what Yamaraj was saying to his assistants. He was saying that, my dear servants, please bring to me only those. Sorry. Sorry. My dear servants, please bring to me only those sinful persons who do not use their tongues to chant the holy name and qualities of Krishna. 1, whose hearts do not remember the lotus feet of Krishna even once. So now this is, even though you're asking me this question, but it's also a question to Yamaraj. Why is Yamaraj telling his assistants that they should bring to him those whose hearts have not remembered Krishna even once? And the reason in Vedic tradition, people are trained to think and remember with their hearts is that when we think with our minds alone, there is no emotion attached to it. There is no emotion attached to it. And when there is no emotion, we become, excuse me to say, like robots. When there is emotion, then it means that we are sentient beings. So I think, yeah, you yourself spoke yesterday. You spoke beautifully yesterday, and you were talking about emotion having a very, very close connection with the devotion. You know, like we know the gopis. When Krishna said he has a headache, the Brahmins were using their mind without a heart and thinking of offenses. How can I offer my stupid feet, the dust from my stupid feet upon the head of my worshipable Lord? But the gopis, they use their heart. And they said, if I have to go to hell by doing that, by relieving the pain of Krishna, may it be so. And so when the scriptures say that we think or we remember with our hearts, means that the mind and the heart are connected. And when the mind and the heart are connected and they communicate with each other, then when I think of especially somebody I claim to love, it will bring about these sentiments in my heart. And that is why when, I'm sure this has happened to you several times, when Kavichandra Maharaj visits Nigeria, you feel so much bliss. And when he leaves, physically, when he leaves, you cry. Why do you cry? Because the mind does not cry, it is the heart that cries. So because of the love, the remembrance by the heart, remembering that, oh, when Gurudev was here, he did this with me, he did that with me, he sent me here, he asked me to do this, I massaged his lotus feet, I washed his dhoti, I ironed his dhoti, I sent him his prasadam. You remember all these things and the emotions we feel in our heart. That is the real remembrance. That is the real thinking. And that is why Srila Prabhupada oftentimes says that, especially in today's world, when people say that they are meditating, they're sleeping because they do not have any image to put in connection to their heart. They're only using the mind. And when just using the mind, you fall asleep. But when we have something to connect to the heart, like we read lots of pastimes of Krishna, like how Krishna stole yogurt from these gopis' homes, and he was being chased after, and then he would hide, and then he would hide behind Mother Yashoda, and these gopis will run to Mother Yashoda's house, and he says, "Where is Krishna? He was just in my house." And Mother Yashoda said, "No." So when we remember all these pastimes, there is a special feeling in our hearts. That is how we remember Krishna. So the emotions, which are not mundane because it's in a relationship with Krishna, is the real remembrance, and not just merely the mind. I hope that helps. Kavikana Prabhu.
Yes, and I a little bit more confused because then I was asking myself, what is the function of the intelligence? Because everything is becoming look more like interwoven now. Everything is like becoming more complicated. What is the function of intelligence? What is the function of the mind? And what is the function of the heart? Because it look a little bit mixed up. Because when we say the Brahmana, they use their mind, and the gopis, they use their heart. Me, I'm thinking the Brahmana, instead, they are using their intelligence, because intelligence is what deal with knowledge. And maybe the gopi, so it's a little bit confusing. So that's why I started thinking, what is the function of the intelligence in this case also?
Yeah.
And where is the mind situated?
Yes. Well, thank you so much. We know from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that he uses 8 elements to create all beings. 5 are gross, 3 are subtle. The 3 subtle are mind, intelligence, ego, right? These mind, intelligence, ego, they are all subtle. And because they are subtle, we cannot physically grasp hold of them. And so the mind is subtle. The heart is gross. Yet the gross is the one that is manifesting the emotions, which is subtle. And so the gross and the physical meet. And they are, like you rightly said, they are intertwined and interwoven. They work together. It's just like my mind at this particular stage on its own cannot move things. And so the mind will have to communicate with my hand that my hand should move something, and then the hand will move it. And so there is a communication between the subtle mind and the gross physical hand. At an advanced stage, the mind on its own can move things. And that is why those who practice mysticism can use the mind to push things, to turn on light, to turn off light, to do things that the physical things can do. But most of us, because we are not there yet, the physical will have to communicate with the subtle. And when the physical communicates with the subtle, and the subtle manifests what the physical is telling, what the subtle is telling us, then we see that there is life. And so when there is a big difference between mind and intelligence. At the same time, they are very similar in the sense that the mind is inferior to the intelligence. Actually, You are right when you said that you thinking that the Brahmins, they use the intelligence. That is being specific. When we're speaking and we want to be very direct and specific, we say they use their intelligence. And they use the intelligence based on their knowledge. And we use both the mind and the intelligence to acquire knowledge. And so intelligence, as defined by Sri Prabhupada, is the ability to analyze things in their right perspective. And so they use their intelligence to analyze that. Scripturally, we know that we cannot take dust from our feet and shower it upon the head of Lord Krishna, which is true. They use the intelligence, which is true. But they were wrong because they did not connect that to the heart. If they had connected that to the heart, they would have also understood it the way the gopis understood it. The gopis understood it that, yes, it is offense, but we do not care as long as that is giving satisfaction to Krishna. Let us suffer for our offense. And so, yes, it appears to be confusing, but it shouldn't be confusing in the sense that both have to work together. If we have the mind without the heart, there is a problem. If we have the heart without the mind, the intelligence, the ego, there is a problem. And that is why the other time I was saying that in medical science, the lines in our palm, there is the lifeline, there is the headline, and then there is the heart line. When the heart and the headline merge and there is no differentiation, then that person has Down syndrome. His or her thinking becomes impaired. No, they do not have feelings. Even when they have to laugh, when they have to smile, they do not know when to laugh. They do not know when to smile because there is no connection. That is Down syndrome. And so for us, we are being trained according to Vaishnava tradition to connect the mind, which is subtle, the mind, intelligence, ego, which is subtle, to the gross, which is the heart. And when these two, the gross and the subtle, are finally connected, then there will be efficiency. I don't know if that helped, or there may be other devotees who could also help throw more light on this.
Yes, you have up to the great extent, Prabhu. It's just that the using of the word, when you say emotion, the heart, and thinking, the mind, that is what is confusing me. Because when we have to be specific about emotions, emotion is maybe sadness, happiness, love. So all those things, where does those things take place? To be specific.
Yeah, I mean, they're all emotions, like sadness, morose. Yeah, again, it's the mind, which is the subtle, which is connecting the heart to the heart. Because it is the mind, the intelligence, that will remember or recognize that I used to have my guru here with me. I used to have him here with me. Now I don't see him here anymore. Then I begin to cry because the eyes, the physical, is not seeing. The mind is communicating. And then the heart. See, it's very interesting how Krishna designed the brain, which is like the sitting place of the mind, intelligence, and the ego. And then the heart for the emotions. And the heart is designed like a sponge. So the heart is able to absorb and keep it, and sometimes squeeze it. The brain, if you look at the brain under a microscope, you see that it has holes. It cannot hold water for long. It's like a sieve. like a net. You pour water in and it seeps out. But the heart can absorb it, contain it, and at the appropriate time, release it. And so it is just a way we humans speak. So what you're saying, I understand you, is like, if we want, I speak like that sometimes, especially when somebody is speaking and I am in the position as you are. I throw this question because we say that we know as devotees that the ABC of spiritual life is we are not this body. We all know that we are the spirit soul. And so I can say my watch, which means that I own my watch. I'm different from my watch. That makes sense. So if we all understand this, why do we always, if not always, oftentimes say my soul? Does that make sense? It does not make sense when we say my soul. But that is just the human way of speaking. And so sometimes when we mean to make reference to the intelligence or even to the ego, we almost always say the mind. But when we are speaking like technically, like when somebody is being technical or being philosophical, then we can break it down and says, I analyze these things with my intelligence. But generally when we speak and we says, in fact, I thought about this. I thought about it. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. But at that point, it was no more the mind. It was the intelligence. But because that is just the way we speak or talk as human beings, we oftentimes speak like that. So the mind, intelligence, ego, they are subtle and they are supposed to work with the heart, which is the gross, so that there will be unison, there will be harmony. When there is one working without the other, then there is going to be pandemonium. There is going to be confusion. Hare Krishna. I think there is a nice message from the chat room. Shumavara Prabhu is saying, let me start from here. If Rasalila says, if one remembers Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even the most difficult things become so simple. If someone forgets Lord Sri Krishna, even the simplest things become impossible. His Holiness Sri Radhanath Swami Maharaj. Yes. And again, she's saying, Rasalila prayer, chanting with feeling, praying with feeling means to do so from the heart. Okay. And thank you, Rasalila prayer, Devi. And Shumavara Prabhu says, heart and mind are often talked subject matters among us. Though human biology distinguishes heart and mind as two organs or entities with concern to the thoughts and emotions in us, it is difficult to differentiate conscience as mind and heart, since these differences are entirely based on our perception. Yes, it's difficult because of our upbringing. Like I said initially, because our upbringing is that we've been trained to think and remember with our mind. We've not been trained that the mind has to connect with the heart. But that is not the case, especially in Islam. I remember when if Oladimeji is here, maybe he can help us with this, because I remember I once had a very nice, healthy interaction with one Muslim in Ghana. And he was making a reference to the mind and the heart. And he was saying that in the Quran, Allah made a reference to the mind and the heart that the mind and the heart have to work together. And that is why the mind is designed in such a way that it cannot act as sponge, but the heart is designed to hold things like sponge. If Oladimeji is here, maybe he can help us on this. I'm sure he knows about this. But thank you so much for your questions, and thank you.
I'm not finished. I just want Anani Dana Prabhu to ask, then I will continue.
Okay, Hare Krishna, thank you. So, Ananda Nidini Prabhu, you may unmute. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much.
I can see that your workload is too much for you today.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So, Prabhu, my question is in regards to yesterday's purport as well as today's purport also.
Okay.
Because somewhere in yesterday's purport, the Prabhupada said, a devotee who is ready to go back home, back to Godhead, has to avoid worldly enjoyers as well as women.
Yes.
And in today's purpose also, Srila Prabhupada is saying that the saintly people, they visit the homes of the householders, just to purify them or to, I don't know how. Yes.
Yes.
So my question is, in yesterday's purport, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refused the association of King Patravarudra just because of his a royal king.
Yeah.
And well, their association can purify such people. So why will he avoid the association of King Patravarudra, knowing very well that his presence can sanctify such a person, or hence purify him? So why will he try to not to associate with King Patravarudra? I don't know if my question is clear.
Very clear. And very, very appropriate and very relevant, important question. It's very interesting you asked this question. It's very, very intelligent question, and I didn't know. Thank you. Yes, there are so many things said in the scriptures which are meant for everyone, and at the same time, also meant for certain people, not meant for everyone. So, when the Lord Chaitanya did that, he was doing that just to teach sannyasis not to become so infatuated with royal people. It wasn't that Lord Chaitanya wasn't ready to give mercy to these kings, to this particular king, Patravarudra, because he was a royal king. It is the same Lord Chaitanya who has asked us to go to every town, place, and village and distribute. Is he playing double standard? No. But he was playing the role of a sannyasi. And for a sannyasi to become so infatuated with royal people is going to lead to ruination. It's going to ruin your sannyas discipline. See, because I am a grihasta, I am allowed to talk to women in a certain way. When the Lord Chaitanya said that one should not even see the image of a doll, one should not even see a doll in the image of a woman, he was making a reference to sannyasis. Because for ordinary devotees who are not sannyasis, we are dealing with everybody. And that is why every ashram is very important and relevant. There are certain places sannyasis cannot go, grihastas can go, and the grihastas will have to go there to help the people. There are certain places the grihastas cannot go, or even if the grihastas go, they may not be taken serious. So in those circumstances, the sannyasis will have to go. And so where Lord Chaitanya again prayed in his Shastaka that I'm not looking for beautiful, I'm not influenced by beautiful women, I'm not attracted by beautiful women, it's referring to sannyasis. Most of us are devotees. I've asked this question before, and the person to whom I asked the question was very offended and very much upset with me for asking him such a question. The question I asked, and this time I'm not asking, I'm just making a statement, is that some of us were not married. We joined devotional service for quite some time before we married. And those of us who joined devotional service before we married, we knew this Shastaka, and we were reciting this Shastaka. Now I want somebody to come out here and tell me that when he was marrying, he was not looking, or he was not having any concern for beauty. Does that make us hypocrites? No. It is natural to look for beauty. If you do not look for beauty, there is something wrong with you. And that is why the gopis, they are always transcendentally enamored by Krishna because of Krishna's beauty. When they remember Krishna's smile, his white teeth, and how it is well straightened up, beautifully set in his mouth, they fall in ecstasy because of his beauty. Draupadi, because of her beauty, everybody was mad after her. So it is natural for normal human beings to be attracted to beautiful things. Now, if you are a sannyasi, you have taken a vow that no, these things are no more attractive to you, especially for sense gratification. And so Lord Chaitanya abandoned Prataparudra just to teach a lesson to the sannyasis that do not become infatuated with royal people. Because anytime somebody feeds your stomach, he is also going to feed your tongue and control your tongue. And that is why we see in this world, see, I may be very crazy. Once I start giving you money, and you know you're receiving money from me, when I do something stupid, you'll be very careful how to say it to me, because you know by saying it, you're not going to get the money anymore. And so as a sannyasi, you know, you're not going to depend on rich people because of their riches to water down your discipline. And so that is just the example Lord Chaitanya said. But it is our responsibility to go anywhere, everywhere, reach out to people and help them. Like I was saying, at the Chakra Prabhu, you say Hare, and then other people will repeat Hare. So in this way, knowingly or unknowingly, they're chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and they're getting purified. I hope that helps answer your question. Anadi Nidanam Prabhu.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu, but I'm not fully satisfied.
Yes, the way you said yes, I knew you were not fully satisfied.
Yeah, to be honest with you, if their purification can sanctify such people, then I don't see the reason of restriction to any place at all. I don't know if you understand my point also.
No, there is a restriction. The restriction is needed because, listen, it is said that we need to remember Krishna. We need to chant the holy names of Krishna to attain Krishna. Okay? So the means of attaining Krishna is to chant the holy names of Krishna and to remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. After we have attained Krishna, we still hold on to the same things. We don't give them up. And that is why even those who are pure devotees, they still seek the association of devotees. It is clearly said in Nectar of Devotion, chapter 16. It talks about devotional service. The teachings of the Acharyas and Krishna himself, the teachings of Sanatana Goswami, that has been beautifully laid out generally in the Nectar of Devotion, is that Sanatana Goswami, echoed by Rupa Goswami, they're saying it that the most important thing for devotees to do is sadhu sangha. And it is important for the neophyte as well as the Paramhamsa. And therefore, even those who are Paramhamsa sannyasis, you also need to be guided. You also need to be protected, because we were saying this yesterday, the power of sex attraction is so strong that no matter who you are, if you do not have the special grace and mercy of Krishna, you're going to fall to it. And that is how Shobhara Muni, meditating in the depths of the ocean bed, saw two fish mating, and immediately, instantly, he got agitated. He abandoned his meditation, came out, and got himself married. That is the power of sex attraction. And therefore, one cannot attempt to save someone without himself not being saved first. And so self-protection or preservation is the first principle, is the basic principle. We have to protect ourselves first. And so Lord Chaitanya does not want his field marshals to get injured and wounded on the battlefield. So he's giving them the instructions, the directions, how to safeguard ourselves from this powerful tool, weapon. It's called sex attraction. It's a very special weapon from Kandarpa. Kandarpa is going to release his arrow very soon, next week, Tuesday. It's Valentine's Day. Kandarpa Muni is going to release his arrows, which is made of beautiful flowers. And it's just like music. It hits you, but you feel no pain. You just feel it in your heart, and you lose your brain. You lose your heart, you lose your mind. So it's a protection. That's what Chaitanya did. The sannyasis are not the only people that can benedict. Every devotee can benedict. And so even grihastas, when they visit, they can also benefit these royal people. And that is why we grihastas, devotees in general, we go out there, we preach. We're helping people, not only sannyasis. I hope that helps. We go to Kavikanapur Prabhu. Please, you may unmute.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Yeah. So my second question is about in the course of your lecture, you were mentioning about those who don't surrender to Krishna, they worship Krishna, they are foolish.
Yeah.
So that reminds me of a verse in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna mentioned about the 4 kinds of people who don't surrender to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my main question is, what is the difference between Muda and Naradama? That is the foolish and the lowest among mankind. What is the difference? Because
Yes.
both these guys, they're among those people that Krishna mentioned that they don't surrender. So what is, I want to know the fine difference between the lowest among mankind and the foolish person. What is the difference between these two people? Thank you.
Beautiful question. The Skritina and Naradama.
Muda and Naradama.
Muda fools. Well, it's beautiful because you know how we have Muda, it's M-U. And then if you just take away the M and you bring Buddha, they are intelligent. So you just remove M, you bring B, then you change the equation. So of course, I'm saying it and I love to say it because sometimes it takes sharp words to set people up, sometimes. And so I like it when I hear, I've been saying this, my favorite portion of the Back to Godhead is Srila Prabhupada speaks out. Because when Srila Prabhupada is speaking out and somebody is arguing and Srila Prabhupada is chastising and scolding, it gives me so much bliss, So here, Yamaraj is saying that those who do not surrender to Krishna, they are fools and rascals. Let me see if I can share that again. Yes. It says, please bring me all such fools and rascals. And who are those fools and rascals? It says, those who do not use their tongues to chant the holy name and the qualities of Krishna. Those whose hearts do not remember the lotus feet of Krishna even once. And those whose heads do not bow down even once before Lord Krishna, not even many, just once. Send me those who do not perform their duties toward Vishnu, which are the only duties in human life. Please bring me all such fools and rascals. So my little understanding of fools and like asses is that when someone is a fool, he does not even know what to do, what not to do. When someone is like an ass, he knows what to do, but he knows what to do. And it's very interesting how Srila Prabhupada uses words, because Srila Prabhupada uses the ass. It says the ass will carry so much heavy load on its back and will be fed with something, a small morsel of food that the ass can find anywhere on its own. The ass can find it anywhere, but the ass is willing to accept that small morsel by working so hard. And again, the ass, just like the camel, they're eating thorns, and the thorns is piercing the tongue, and it's bleeding. It's causing pain, but because the blood is mixing with the grass, he's enjoying it. So he knows that I can get something here, but the way of getting it is very insane. But he keeps doing it. So it's an ass. But a fool, he does not even know anything at all. So both of them are in a very bad shape. Because I remember I visited one police officer, and he told me, because one guy had connived with our cowhead keeper to steal our cows. And this guy was a known thief. So this police officer friend told me, Sahadev, a fool will remain a fool. a fool will remain a fool. It's like, excuse me to say, they've lost their mind, they've lost their heart, they've lost their intelligence, and it requires a very, very patient, tolerant person to sit down to reschool this foolish person. And most of us were foolish at some point, but we are not fools, because even though we were Buddhas, we were fortunate. We've been able to remove the M and bring about the B. Now we are all Buddhas. We are intelligent people. And that is why we're doing what we are doing. Because we are intelligent, we sometimes become asses also. Because even though we know that we have to surrender to Guru and Krishna, but sometimes we do not surrender. Why? Because our mind, our heart is telling us that if we surrender, we're going to miss this, we're going to lose this, we're going to lose that. And so we do not totally surrender. And so therefore, even though we are not fools, but we become asses. So if we have to put an ass-like person and a foolish person on the weight, on the scale, the foolish person will outweigh the ass-like person. And so if we are not fools and we are ass-like, we should be grateful for that, because by Guru Krishna's grace, Devotees Association, we are most likely going to evolve out of the ass-like lifestyle and live as real adult, full-fledged human beings. Yamaraj was saying that the real purpose of human beings is to serve Krishna. And so when we come to that level, then this us-like tendencies will be eradicated. Hare Krishna. Srimad Prabhu, please, you may unmute. Hare Krishna.
Haribo, Hare Krishna. Glories to
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Obeisances to everybody.
Hare
Okay,
Krishna.
2 points. First, I'd like to make a contribution to Anadi Nidanam's question.
Yes, please.
And this last question from Kavikanapura, you really did justice to that, because Srila Prabhupada in the purport of that text 7:15, he described the Mudas as the foolish ass who doesn't know for whom he's working, and he's just working, he's just working just to get smart into it, but he actually doesn't know for whom he's working.
I love such words.
that is the Muda.
Yeah.
And this type of people, because they don't really know for whom they're working, they're just working just to get something to eat, but they're just foolish. And because they're foolishness, they don't know to whom they should surrender. That's the point. They don't know to whom they should surrender. And that is the example of the Muda. And then the Naradama, Srila Prabhupada used the example of Jagaya Madai. Jagaya Madai said that good example of the lowest among mankind. And why are they have some knowledge, but they willfully refuse to surrender. The Muda does not even know to whom to surrender. It's just a foolish worker. But then the Naradama, they are lowest among human beings, because they have knowledge, but they refused. They willingly do not want to surrender. So Jagaya Madai, who were Brahmanas, but then descended to despicable life, are considered as Naradamas. So anyway, thank you. You actually more or less explain the same thing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's like putting ice on the cake, making it sweet. So yes. And I didn't
was not very much satisfied with the answer, so I just felt like I should make some contribution.
Yes, please.
It's a very, very important question he asked.
Very.
Very important question. Why would Lord Chaitanya refuse?
In fact, yesterday I was listening carefully to Kavi Kanapura's lecture, but I did not want to disturb him because
Probably even if you disturb, that would have been a very positive disturbance.
I left him. Because one of his previous lecture here, he was defending devotees who wanted to become politicians. And then he came up again yesterday, and then he started to say all those kind of things. I was just wondering, what is he saying?
Because he was speaking.
Anyway. So now in relation to the question asked by Anadi Nidan and Prabhu, Lord Chaitanya, like you rightly said, Lord Chaitanya was doing that as an example, not to associate with Visayas. With Visayas, there are two types of non-devotee. I mean, two types of people that devotees should avoid the association. There are non-devotees and there are Visayas. A Visaya may be a devotee, but it's a sense gratifier. Yeah. Either by the virtue of his state or service or whatever, he's in a position of a sense gratifier. It's a Visaya. It's not a non-devotee, but it's a Visaya. And the scripture says you should be very careful not to associate with Visayas. So Prataparudra is not a non-devotee, he's a devotee, but he's a Visaya. He's in a position of a sense gratifier. And because it's an authority also, it becomes very difficult trying to change his lifestyle or to instruct him to the contrary, unless he himself has made the decision. So it's an example Lord Chaitanya was giving so that we should be careful not to associate with Visayas. The word is very important. Those who are in position of sense gratification, if you cannot uplift him, he will bring you to his level. I think that example was used also yesterday of Jagadananda, who is also a devotee, but was always trying to make Lord Chaitanya to at least accept some comfort. And Lord Chaitanya was constantly refusing that. Now, imagine if you were to be in the association of a king. The king will be giving him much more comfort than even Jagadananda was asking him to accept. Do you get the point? So as a sannyasi, he wants to show the example. If you go closer to people in comfortable position like a king, they will offer you so much comfort, you will forget your renounced life, or you will start compromising with your renounced life, you know? So that is the example Lord Chaitanya was trying to give. Now, even though he did not give his association directly to Prataparudra, but he gave his association to Ramananda Rai, who was a governor. But Ramananda Rai was already in the position of renouncing that position. It was already, giving up that position. So it was easier to associate with him and discuss with him rather than somebody still actively serving as a king. Do you see the difference? Yes. He even embraced Ramananda Rai. He embraced him and had a lot of discussion with him, even though he was a governor. Finally, of course, he finally renounced that position, but he was already walking away from that. And he was already highly situated in Bhava, in pure Krishna consciousness. It's not like somebody actively engaged in taking care of worldly responsibilities, and is very much conscious of that. So last example is that of Jagaya Madai, because he said, if Lord Chaitanya could really sanctify them, why was he avoiding them? So Lord Chaitanya really showed his power of being a Patita Pavana when he saved Jagaya Madai. Lord Chaitanya embraced Jagaya Madai and absorbed all the sinful reactions from their body into his own body. And his body turned black. Even though he was having this golden color, but his body turned black. So you could see the power of Lord Chaitanya, that he could sanctify anybody. He could sanctify all the kings put together. But he was showing the example that sannyasis should not associate with Visayas, who are accustomed to comforts, because they would influence you with their comfort. You understand? Even Jagadananda Pandit, who was not a king, Lord Chaitanya was avoiding him because he was always encouraging him to accept more comfort. So I want to speak of a king, but that's not the question of whether he could sanctify them or not, because he demonstrated his power of sanctifying the most fallen, Jagayamadai, by absorbing all their sinful reactions into his own body. So there's no question about him running away from being contaminated by Prataparudra, but he was laying down the precepts that sannyasis should follow in order for them to be able to adhere to the principles of renounced life.
Yes.
So that is the small contribution. Thank you.
Oh, Prabhuji, what you refer to as small is huge. It's so beautiful, so beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It makes the whole thing much more complete. Can we approve, Prabhu, please?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhu. I still have more questions to ask regarding to my first question, where we're talking about emotion and the mind and the heart. I wish maybe it's a great Shrima Varals of Prabhu will have more to add to that. So my question now is, now we are in this modern age, there is this word also used, emotional intelligence. So where does this fit in this all these things we are discussing about? The emotion is the heart, and the thinking is the mind, and you have to bring your thinking to your heart. So where does emotional intelligence fit in?
Well, I'm not sure. Shrima Varals Prabhu, will you take that, please?
Yes. Thank please. You. In fact, that escaped me, and it's good that you asked me to say something.
Yeah.
First and foremost is that you have to understand their their correlation. In what way they are situated. First is you should understand that the heart is actually matter, but it's the seat of the soul. The heart is an organ, and is the seat of the soul. So that is where all these functions of the subtle body is passing through that, is felt through that. It is the seat of the soul. So that means that the soul and the subtle body have all the perceptions come from the heart region. I hope you get the point. It's totally different from like the senses. The heart is the seat of the soul. So because the soul is seated there, so the functions of the mind are felt through the heart also. Thinking, feeling, willing are the functions of the mind. And without the heart, we cannot perceive the thinking and feeling and willing without the heart. But it is true that the heart, it's the emotional region where the love, kindness, and your love and kindness are felt more, whereas the mind, controls more of the logic and reasoning. But all these things are fed through the region of the heart, because that is the seat of the person. That is the seat of the soul, that, where all these faculties are coming from. Now, higher than the mind, of course, we know is the intelligence. And you have to also know what are the faculties of the intelligence. So there now you talk about imagination, perception, willing, memory, and intuition. So all these faculties, intuition. So these things are the faculties of the intelligence, and again, they trickle down through the heart, because that is the seat. That is where they're sitting. These faculties of the subtle body, the mind, and the intelligence are being felt through the organ of the mind. It cannot be through the senses, the leg or the hand or no. It is through that aspect, the heart, which is also linked with the brain. So that is where the actions of the subtle body are channeled. So that is why it is a bit difficult to separate them or distinguish them, because that is their house. That is the sitting point, the heart. But they all have their different functions. The mind is thinking, feeling, willing faculties. The intelligence, which is the imagination, intuition, perception, memory, and the willing. All these are also the faculties of the intelligence. So they all channel through the heart. But the heart, because of the emotions of love and caring, so it's like a bit considered more softer than the way the mind rationalizes things and reasons. But last point I'd like to mention on this, don't forget that no matter what, the heart is an organ, it's a matter, whereas the mind is subtle. So we talk about mind over matter. SAHADEV was trying to talk about that. Mind over matter. So the mind can still go beyond the heart, because sometimes we become, how do you say, we become, the word is escaping me. No. We become the softness. I want to talk about the softness of the heart. The softness of the heart sometimes make us to become very weak-minded. The right word I want to use is escaping me. So, but that is the function, the side of the heart, which is the feeling of softness, of love, of caring. So that, but the mind can rise above that. The mind can rise above that because it's superior to that organ, which is earthly, which is material. So we say that rise above, this feeling, because the mind can go beyond that. So these are some of the nuances about the differences. Okay.
So thank you very much.
I hope it's a bit clear, but
yes, it's a bit clear. And what I want to ask more is just more clarification. So can we say the brain is the office of the mind? Since the art is the sitting place, like the house. So is the brain the sitting house? Because when the scientists want to analyze about the thinking, all the thinking and the feeling and the willing, everything is taking place in the brain, as in connected to the body. So can we say the brain is the office, or how can we connect this? And what do you talk about emotional intelligence also?
Well, anyway, two things. First, about the brain. The brain is also, is matter. It is the organ through which, they call it encephalography. The metaphysical word is escaping me. Encephal something logram. It is the connection between the mind and the physical senses. Because when the mind, which is controlling the senses, has to send the signals to the senses, or when the senses see something and they have to send the signal to the mind, and then the mind, evaluates it before the intelligent take decision. So the brain is the organ through which these functions take place. The interaction between the senses and the mind. The mind is the chief senses, the chief of all the senses, the sixth one and the chief. So when the senses, collect their information, they transmit it to the mind through the brain. The brain is the connection between the mind and the senses. And then when the mind and the intelligence are taking their decisions, they also pass that through the brain for the senses to carry out or to execute the function. I hope that point is clear. Now, concerning the emotional intelligence, of course, that is when we are trying to be influenced emotionally. Sometimes they also say emotional abuse. When somebody just breaks down, start crying, crocodile tears, just to be able to escape the situation. So these are some emotional intelligence, trying to use emotion to influence situation. And there are many ways people do that, and often women are seen to be more expert in this, using emotional intelligence. So when we are using the emotions to be able to influence our desires, what we want, then that becomes an emotional intelligence. It is a subtle way of influencing decision, not based on logic, but just by the emotional appeal. And many a time it can be very misleading. That is why those who do investigation, those who do like a criminal department, they learn how to rise above that kind of emotional influence. You know, they learn to be placid, very, very placid, uninfluenced by people crying, or, you know, because they can do that just to get their way out, but they could really be criminal, you see.
Yeah.
So that is some of the power of emotional intelligence. I hope that serves something. Parable.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of uneasy to fully understand, but it's also understandable in the sense, like Shrimad Prabhu was explaining. The brain, if we are not electricians, but if we studied electricity, we know that there is power, there is electricity, there is energy. The energy, we cannot see it, but we know where the energy is coming through. So we have the wires. The wires are there, but there must be something to make it active. You know, so the energy itself, which can make fridge cool things, stove heat things, is the mind. And then the energy is like what Prabhu was saying, the brain. So when you do like MRI, Prabhuji was trying to say like an encephalogram, which is looking at the brain under a microscope. There are different parts of the brain for different functions. And so that I was explaining this the other time, that like those who have Alzheimer's disease, they are forgetful. There's a particular portion of the brain which is responsible for recollection. When that particular portion becomes affected in a way, then it affects our thinking capabilities. So they are all interwoven, they are intertwined. The heart, the brain, like you said, the brain is like the vehicle for the mind, the intelligence. No, but the brain we can see, the mind we cannot see, because the brain is a physical organ and the mind, intelligence are subtle that we cannot see. Maybe we go to Hare Chakra. If time permits, we may continue on this particular theme. Hare Chakra, Prabhu, please unmute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you. I think before I raised my hand, Bharat Prabhu had not spoken. But when he spoke, it's like it answered because I was going to ask that we understand that the subtle body carries the soul from one body to the other, which means the soul is encaged in the subtle body. Now,
no,
the soul is
no. It's the other way around. It's the soul that carries the subtle body.
So then if the soul is the one that carries the soul, then how come that when somebody becomes pure and he's had to go back home, back to Godhead, then it means he has gotten rid of the subtle body?
Yes, as long as the soul is in this material world, the mind, the intelligence, and the ego are constant companions. The first 5 growths are only companions for that particular life experience. After that life experience, those 5 elements, they disintegrate and you don't get them in the same proportion. But the mind, intelligence, ego, they follow the soul wherever the soul goes, whichever body it goes.
Yeah.
Whichever planet.
Oh well.
But when the soul is ready to get out of this material world in total, then the soul abandons the mind, intelligence, and ego here.
Yeah. So the question I was going to ask that I said Vara Prabhu had explained was that it was the understanding that the soul resides in the heart region.
Yeah.
Which means all its attachment, the mind, the intelligence, and the ego and the false ego, seemingly also are in the same sitting places with him. And that is why Vara Prabhu, when he spoke, I said has answered my question, because I was going to ask the question that if the subtle body is with the soul, then if the soul is situated in the heart, then definitely the subtle body is also set there, right there in the heart. Hence.
Oh, okay, I see a question. You mean like the subtle elements, the mind intelligence?
The subtle elements are so also right there in the heart also. Okay. So that when Kavi Kanapu's question, you were answering Kavi Kanapu's, then it struck me that, well, all these things are all right there in the heart. So, by the way Varaha Prabhu answered the question, it explained whatever thing I was going to ask.
Yeah, they are not there, but they are intertwined and they send messages. They are like conduits, if I may, for lack of appropriate word. They are conduits that work with each other. For most of us, our understanding is that the mind is faster than anything you can think, because as I'm sitting here, if I've been to London before and I think of London, instantly I'll be imagining myself in London. But there is something else that is even much quicker, faster than the mind, and that is the hormones. The hormones are even much faster than the mind. And these hormones, the mind, intelligence, they are all interconnected. I mean, scientifically, like maybe in Vedic science, we may not use the word hormone, but in modern science or in medicine, when we have fear, we know it's the mind sending something to the heart, but the precursor actually is the hormones. And that is why there are medications that if someone is having panic attack, he could be given this particular medication and it will stop that panic attack. So it's hormones, so there are so many things working together. This body is a machine. So because it's a machine, there are many components to this body all working together to make this machine a very viable machine. And so that's all I can say. Salika Prabhu, you have something to say, please unmute.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Sumasade.
I'm also looking at the time. Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you very much for this beautiful class. And I want to thank all of the questionnaires and the contributors, Mambara, and all of the other contributors for the beautiful contributions. I just wanted to actually make a comment on the last response to the question of Harishakra Prabhu in relation to the mind, body, and the subtle bodies.
Yeah.
The mind, intelligence, and ego. I think there is a little mix-up here. The mind, intelligence, ego is the soul has its original mind, intelligence, and ego. What happens to the subtle body, mind, intelligence, ego is covering the original mind, intelligence, and ego. So when the soul becomes liberated, the coverings that is covering the original ego, the the covering that's covering the mind, intelligence, and ego is removed. Just like presently, the soul is covered by the external physical body, gross material body. So it drops that. But the original soul, mind, intelligence, ego, and ego is covered by the subtle material body called intelligence, force, ego, mind, and intelligence. So it is not like the soul is, the subtle body is destroyed or it leaves the subtle body. The subtle body is original. It has its originality, but it is covered. So when the soul becomes liberated, that covering is what goes off. But this original ego remains with the soul because it's natural part of the soul. The original intelligence remains, and the original ego, mind, and intelligence remain because the soul actually operates with the mind eternally. So the soul is part of its existence is the mind, but the original mind or the mind, intelligence, the ego is covered by the illusory mind, intelligence, and ego, which the soul misidentifies with. So according to the power statement in regards to this, so when the soul becomes liberated, when it becomes pure, then the material body, subtle body is removed. It's just like a covering. That covering is what is removed, and the soul regains its original ego, original intelligence, and mind. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. I thank you for sharing. I agree with you, but there is something else I would just wanted to add to what you just shared, and that is, yes, mind, intelligence, ego are those three elements we refer to as subtle. Now, as Salika Prabhu was saying, the soul is also built with mind, intelligence, ego. But the original built-in mind, intelligence, ego are not subtle. Because in the spiritual world, in the soul, in its original constitution, there is no subtlety in the spiritual world. Everything in the spiritual world is pure spirit. It's completely spiritual. But because these elements are necessities for us to work as rational beings, there is a component of it in this material world, which is a reflection, it's a shadow. And so the mind, intelligence, ego, because they are subtle, when the soul becomes pure in its original constitution, these mind, intelligence, ego that are subtle are dropped, and then the original spiritual mind, intelligence, ego are here. Just like I was saying it, that God is in the heart of every living entity, but that aspect of God is the 400 form, which is vision. And again, there is God living in the heart of his pure devotees, and that form of God is Krishna with 2 hands. And so Krishna is in the heart of everybody, but in 2 different forms. One is in the 400 form, one is in the 200 form. And similarly, when we talk about the subtle elements also indicate that we drop them here because the subtle elements cannot go beyond the material plane.
Please, I don't mean to interrupt. Please forgive me.
But no, not at all. Please come in.
I would like to have a reference to what you've just said, that the super soul in the heart of every living entity is in 2 forms. I would like to have a reference to that.
No. I did not say in 2 forms. I said the super. I said God is in the heart of every living entity in 2 forms. One is in the 400 form, which is for all living entities. And then one is 200 from when someone is a pure devotee.
Is that true? Where do you get that from? I would like to have a reference.
All right. I cannot because of time, but I'll look for it. I'll look for it and I'll share it on the WhatsApp platform. That when one becomes a pure devotee, Krishna is directly in his heart.
Hare Krishna, I think maybe if I understood SAHADEV Prabhu properly, because I think something similar to what he's trying to say, is that the Krishna is manifested in two different forms into the conditions, so to the yogis, sorry, and it's, I think, in that purport of what's that verse in the first canto, where it is said that the Krishna is the supreme personality of God. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and Krishna is to Bhagavan Swayam. What's that verse? I can remember. It is explained that for the Paramatma, Krishna is manifested as in his 400 forms, and for the pure devotee is manifested in or is perceived in his original form of 200 form of Krishna. So I don't know whether that is what SAHADEV Prabhu is trying to explain.
Yeah, I'll look for it after the class, but I've come across it a couple times that those
Krishna, when one is on the platform of a Mahabhagavat or pure devotee, this Krishna in the art in this 200 form.
Yes.
But when one is on the Paramatma level, it sees Krishna in the heart in his 400 forms. The same Krishna, but it's manifested as Narayan or 400 forms in his heart. But that does not mean there are two forms simultaneously. It's just that he is seen in different forms based on the level of the devotee or devotees that is seeing Krishna. So for the Paramatma realization, a yogi sees Krishna, who is in the heart in his 400 forms, and a pure devotee sees him in his 200 form in his heart. So that's the explanation I think I've read somewhere.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Saleka Prabhu, for that additional information. But that's what I meant. But there are a couple of statements like that across the scriptures, but I don't have them as we speak. So I'll get them and then share with devotees later on.
I think the verse I'm trying to quote is SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, 1st Canto, chapter 2, text number 11. Where Krishna says, Vedanti tat, yes, that's the verse. Vedanti tat tatvat vidas. Yeah, Vedanti tat tatva vidas tatva yagyatva advayam brahmiti pramatmeti bhagavan iti sabde. And then Prabhupada gave in the purport, I think whether it's in this purport or it's the lecture of this purport. This text, Prabhupada explained.
Well, we'll do that later on. It's been 2 hours, 20 minutes. What do we do? I think it's time we bring the class to a close.
Oh.
What do you think, Shri Saleka Prabhu?
Yeah, I think we have taken enough time. There are no more questions raised. There are no answers. I think you've done the job. Don't mind me. I'm just a very bad co-host.
It's okay. Things happen.
I was simultaneously having 3 engagements at the same time.
Okay,
so crazy. But I mean, all of them were just 1 hour, 30 minutes each. So I was able to finish them.
Okay.
So I was logged on 3 devices simultaneously. So I think on this note, if there are no more questions or comments, we'll do our usual ritual by requesting all of the devotees to please kindly unmute. Let us loudly chant the loudest of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to appreciate our speaker for today, His Grace.
Well, thank you all.
Hare
Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Rama,
Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Panchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhuvacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namo.
Jagat Krishna Prabhupada.
Jai.